IV.
Dear Dad, these words are being written and spoken because my heart and soul feel broken. I laugh to keep from crying, but I still haven't healed after all of my years of my goofiness and joking. You got me open, hoping this ill feeling will pass, won't last. I wear a mask, and my peace won't ask for the truth. Truthfully speaking, the truth hurts, but I'm beyond hurting. I'm in pain. When I was a shorty, I thought you left because I wouldn't behave. Later on in life, I found out that it was the cane as well as other things. And with all the scars, it was hard, but I learned to forgive and forgave. I forgave you despite the fights, the tears, for all the years lost, wondering if I was loved. Sometimes all I needed was a call and a hug. I mean, I understand that people break up and don't make up, and some relationships don't last forever, but why weren't we together? Mom could have found a new man, but where was I going to find a new dad? Looking back, I wish would have begged me, but pleaded my case, because I felt like I didn't matter, like I was deleted and erased. I would cry, still cry, so much that I get headaches. I try to get you off my mind, but I can't get you off of my face. I see you every time I see me, and I can't do nothing but ask God to bless me, because my love was amputated, my life was complicated, my family became dysfunctional. Dad, I remember when you pushed Mom, she broke her ankle, and I was sitting there thinking, how could you do this to such a beautiful angel? I remember Mom waking us up in the middle of the night saying, shh, Jimmy, put some clothes in the jewels bag. We're going to Grandma's, and if your father come up to your school, don't tell him where we'd be. I remember spending Christmas at Grandma's playing with my Stretch Armstrong, thinking, man, this ain't my house. How does Santa Claus find me? But the little boy in me still wants his daddy badly. I feel like a scared little boy afraid to become a man, but I think I'm ready. I wonder if you know that your baby boy did a show that aired for millions to see on HBO, and that hard-ass New York crowd that I didn't even know actually gave me a standing no. I wonder if you know. I know you're proud, because I'm be the best, just like you want to be. Watch and see. And just in case you can't, I'm screaming so loud that I shake the clouds and move them out the way of my sunshine, because that's what you are, Dad. James Ivy Richardson, see you, do you hear me? You are my sunshine. That's why I forgave you, because my love for you is still the same. It may have gone through a transformation, but it never really changed. So I swear on my mama and on my name, I'm going to stop this rain, conquer this pain, make sure that you do not die in vain. And when I get to heaven, I'm going to jump in your arms. We going to kick back like when I was little and watch the Bears game. I love you, Dad.
From Los Angeles, California, Def Poet alum, Shihan.
I did this show last Father's Day. When I got off stage, this guy came over to me and told me I reminded him of God. And I told him the only thing perfect about me is my family. 30 fingers and 30 toes, all God-like. And my daughter speaks to me in a voice I imagine God's to sound like, speaking to me of a future like the kind I dream of living. And one day, she'll grow to be a woman no man will ever deserve like her mother, who makes melodies out of moonshine, fingers touch me, the things all nice girls are made of, like the songs say. And our son will someday grow to be something more amazing than we ever imagined, like a mustard seed moving mountains like a grain of sand, and together they will conquer the world. And all I could say was, I was witness to it. And I couldn't be more clever. Believe me, I tried. But this is not about poetry or sounding prolific. It's about a black man's pride in the world trying to make things harder than they already are for him. Trying to find beauty in the ugliness of it all. And we are all trying to escape that darkness or nothingness in a never-ending story of the human condition. And you'll never hear me say, I'm only human. Because saying it like that can make it sound like a bad thing. Because life as a poet is harder than it looks. Road trips make my babysitter see my baby more than I do. And it's hard, right? Picture 2 weeks gone, come home to relief through hugs and kisses. Then come painful reminders like questions with even harder to explain answers like, Daddy, do you still love me? I thought I'd die when she asked me that. My heart felt like, I ain't got a metaphor for that. It just hurts. So I try and keep composure and explain to her everything she needs to hear to let her know her daddy will always be here. And tears form under eyelashes, pregnant with guilt. And she says, Daddy, don't cry, and hugs me and rubs my head. And I break down later in areas of my house I keep my secrets in. And even later, I whisper things to them all in their sleep. I only wish I had the courage to tell them when they were awake. And that's what makes this stage so safe. All the comfort of a fourth wall in a three-dimensional world. All the trappings I could ask for. See, I sacrifice every time I step to the mic. So you tell me if what I'm saying is worth me missing my family for. Thank you.
Peace, 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 peace. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Healing Chambers. I am your sister Rue, Mama Lisa Temple, beautiful upstate New York, Hudson Valley. And I am so excited to be here with you tonight. And as you can see, I'm not alone. Y'all know I'll be technical difficulty in over here, so please forgive us for not starting when we said we would. But believe me, we were here trying. But you know what? That's what we talk about tonight, trying and doing and continuing and making things happen. We are in the Healing Chambers, talk about nurturing and fathers and the effect on emotional intelligence. We just heard two wonderful poets talking things that, when I was a little girl, you heard men say things in love songs, every once in a while, but you didn't hear fathers talk unless they was sometimes bringing down the hammer. So we're going to talk about nurturing. We're going to talk about what it is to have a father nurture you, what it's like to grow up in a house with both parents versus one parent. That's something that a lot of people don't think about and take for granted. In this world, we are all walking around here trying to relate to something and someone and be our best versions of ourselves. However, many of us are missing a whole half of ourselves because we don't know a lot about our fathers and the nurturing that we needed from them. Many times we did not get. Now, what I will say is, just like when we were back talking about mother, this is not about blame. This is not about pointing fingers. This is not about saying, see, it was your fault. We're not here for that. We are here to heal together. We recognize and acknowledge the fact that our parents weren't perfect. Their parents weren't perfect. We are not perfect. Our children are not perfect. But what we can do is we can study ourselves and study our families and study our patterns and do better. We all had things in our childhood that make us wish that we had a different life. And many of us who have children interact with our children differently just because of the way we were raised. So I have Nick Westbrooks and Knowledge Born of Law up in the building. Knowledge Born of Law, y'all. This is the most wonderful platform, man, with over 3,000 shows in his catalog. I've told her one time, if they ever stopped all the shows from being made, we could take those over 3,000 shows and learn everything we need to know about being strong Africans in America, what the Black family should look like, how to stand up for ourselves and be not only revolutionaries, but restorers. I appreciate Knowledge Born for having us on this platform and being willing to sit here with us and talk about this very important topic. These are two men that I truly respect and hold very high in esteem. So for them to be here to talk about this topic is so important. Not only is Knowledge Born a father, he is also a community dad. And I love that. Okay. So we are going to talk about Mr. Westbrooks here, 9 years in our Newark school systems, teaching and rearing and nurturing our youth. He does all types of things in the community, most known for his most magnanimous way of being with his students and introducing them to things that they would not otherwise be introduced to. And that's one of the reasons why I have Nick here, is because these are not his biological children, but he is very important in the nurturing of them. So we are here to talk about that presence in children's lives, that divine masculine that is necessary to shape and mold a well-rounded youth. We're not just talking about young men here, we're talking about young women too. We are talking about the importance of the man in our lives. So, with that being said, I just want to get started with saying that nurturing is something that when we hear it many times, we think about mother, because we think about, nurturing, breastfeeding and wombs and all of these things. This is what we think about. Mother, the first teacher. This is what we think about. But even as mother, the first teacher, father is definitely necessary. Now, many times we don't have what we need. And there is a consequence that happens because of that. But we are here to talk solutions. We are here to share with you our experiences. I will be doing very little talking this time because these gentlemen are going to be able to take us through and share with us not only some of the stories, but tips and things that we can use to be better nurturers, that our men can use to be better nurturers. Not only for the youth in their lives, but for each other, because that nurturing does not stop once you get to be a certain age. Okay? So, if I may, I'm going to ask each of you to further introduce yourself and please give us your understanding on nurturing.
All right. The brother Knowledge Born has given me the cue to go first. So, first of all, giving thanks to Rue for that glowing introduction and thinking of me to have this very important conversation. And of course, thanks to Knowledge Born Allah for opening the platform up to me as well and having me on. About a year ago, we were in the spot on Clubhouse. That's the name of Rue's Clubhouse room, having a very similar conversation. And if this conversation is any reflection of what we did this time last year, it's going to be powerful. It's going to be healing because it is the healing chamber. So as the sister Rue mentioned, I am an educator, and to give some context around that and how it relates to this topic, not only am I an educator that's cultivating the holistic child or children, I also teach English, which is very significant in the sense that it opens up opportunities for the children to express themselves in their opinions and their feelings beyond just the nuts and bolts of learning academic content, as you would in a science or a math class. I'll actually give a brief anecdote to kind of open up and set the stage for the rest of the build. Last year, maybe it was last year or the school year before, one of the assignments that I had my students doing was writing a personal narrative essay. And one of my students submitted an essay in which he was recalling in his younger years when he would cry about something, his mother would tell him to, stop crying, stop being a bee, and suck it up. And then, he told that story in the introduction, and throughout the rest of the essay, he expanded on how that affected him, how it affected his emotional intelligence, his ability to, react or respond to certain situations, how he went from one extreme to the other. So he went from crying to not being able to express emotion at all, to the point where if he was in pain, he would laugh instead of crying or expressing anger. So that was that hit me hard. I was like, whoa. Wow. So, that I just want to start with that anecdote, and then we will see where the conversation goes from there. So in addition to being an educator, I'm also a student of numerology. And one of the themes I'm going to be speaking on is balance. Just as in the laws of nature, there's balance in everything. There's balance when it comes to emotional intelligence. There's balance when it comes to nurture and nurturing. Now, why do I bring up numerology? Because I broke down the word nurture in the two systems of numerology, the Chaldean and the Pythagorean. And in the Chaldean system, it adds up to a 3. And in the Pythagorean system, or the modern system, it adds up to a 9. Now we think about the meaning of the 3 and 9. The number 3 is talking about growth and expansion. That's what I think of when I think of the number 3 as it relates to nurturing. In that promo that Rue created on Instagram, if you saw it, she gave the definitions of nurture. To care for, to encourage the growth or development. So we're talking about growth in one system. In the other system, the word nurture adds up to a 9. And 9 is the number of universal love. So when you're nurturing, you're teaching love. So that person that you're nurturing can love the individuals that they're nurturing, and so on and so forth. So there's a balance, and then where the balance comes in is that just how these numbers carry meaning, they also carry feminine and masculine energies, and also the elements, fire, water, earth, and air, and things of that nature. So when you look at the number 3 and the number 9, they're both fire numbers, they're both masculine numbers, but when you look at the flow lines, shout out to King Simon. I learned the flow lines, from him. When you look at the flow lines of the number 3, it has the curves, like a woman has curves. So even though it's a masculine number, it has those feminine curves. So you see that balance between the masculine and the feminine. And the same thing with the number 9, you see that loop for the feminine, but you see the straight line for the masculine. So that goes back to what Rue opened up with about nurture and nurturing not only being about the mother or the woman, but it's important for the father or the man as well, the balance between the masculine and the feminine. So I'm gonna land right there. So because this is only the introduction, and I'll pass it on to Brother Knowledge Born.
See, I had a temporary lapse in my memory. And I remember as soon as Nick opened his mouth, I was like, whatever Nick says before me, I have to follow up after that. And I was like, why did I do that to myself? You understand what I'm saying? I was like, why did I do that to myself? Like, why did I subject myself to the type of pressure that's associated with following after Nick and all of his magnificent, anecdotal and practical evidence? I'm gonna try. You see what I'm saying? I'm gonna try my best to do this some justice. I want to give thanks to the mother of all living. In her presence is why we're here and assembled. And as we begin to look at her legacy, being a part of her legacy is one that is a blessing and a gift from God. When my mother spoke, she said everybody couldn't work with her. And then she doubled down and said everybody couldn't work for her. And I was there and I said, I barely made it. So it took me 26 years to be able to work for her, but all of my life to work with her. So that modality in regards to having an understanding of the spiritual science of rearing comes from that essence of having a understanding of what's necessary, and then an understanding of what the situation calls for, because they're not the same. So to be here at this particular point in time, in all space of vulnerability, taking this place here on this particular platform to speak about Father and nurturing, and for her infinite wisdom to say, hey, bring your ass. She pulled us by ear, one ear and the other ear, because, Mama ain't about to tell you too many times to bring your ass. You understand? Be glad that Mama said, come on in the room. So, here discussing the pitfalls and the psychology, we have a great, tremendous task in regards to the duty and responsibility of Father. And it is one that is a blessing. And as you saw from the opening clips, two different vantage points from two masterminds who went inside of the deepest recesses of their vulnerable space and imparted poetically and rhythmically the deepest aspects of their soul to understand that a Black man trusts God enough to be vulnerable before thousands of people and to declare these things that were very hurtful to them. And on the other side, things that are very sacred and blessed to him on the other side gets us into the mind. I see, the fathers, they're coming in, to the chat, sending the messages out. We're all men who came with no instruction manual in regards to Father in a society where the hunt is on and you're the prey. Kwame Ture said that, and it was so powerful that Charles S. Dutton said it in Menace to Society. He was looking at Cain, and he said, what are you going to do? And he spoke to him in a way that nobody ever spoke to him in his life. He spoke to him as somebody who had walked the path where he lived and now existed. And he realized in that space where he was talking to him, and before that, he was talking to his son. He was talking to his son, and he saw him grow up and develop, and he saw how the decisions that he made to grow into this transformed man that he become, he had to respect. So now he's there talking to his friend. And that community father, Nick, that you and I are, we know exactly what it is. He told him, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's a question he asked him. It had to rain into his head. He didn't say a lot of words. It wasn't no colorful words. He just said to him in the most direct manner, what are you going to do? So when that question rained in his head, it was raining in all of our heads. Because he couldn't hear his grandfather. Even though his grandfather and grandmother had welcomed him into his house. There was a generational gap. So the only example prior to that man that he saw was his father. And he was his father's son. From beginning to end. But he had an intervention. And that intervention was an opportunity that was so seeded enough that he thought he could make a decision to change his life. But when we looked around that film, that wasn't his only example. he went to see Purnell, who he thought was a father figure to him that he looked up to, and he said, Cain, raise my son. He told him. Teach him the way we grew up was bullshit. Now, if we were looking for profound lines and instances where it shifted, how many of us would have changed the trajectory and path of our life if we would have learned the lesson that that man was telling him from the other side of the glass? He could never see his child again. He could never be a father in his life. He said, raise my son and teach him the way we grew up was bullshit. We didn't glorify how we came up, what we had to do to survive and all of those things. But the media had grabbed a hold of this thing and hyperdimensionalized a small subsection of our reality and magnified it so it became an overwhelming presence to the point we lived in the time where they were calling young black men predators, super predators. And there was no, balance on the other side, as you spoke of, in regards to the proper representation to undo the wrongs and the hells that we seen, that we witnessed, that we observed. Javi was talking about his mother like he was talking to his father. Like, when I spoke to him, the healing that had to take place in regards to forgive the one who's supposed to be the closest to you. In Islam, they say men are the protectors and maintainers of women. The Holy Quran speaks of that. And then it goes a step further. It says, where you find no good men, you find no good women. It takes it a step further right there on your duties and responsibilities if you didn't know them. But how many examples do you see of that? How many examples do you see? Nathan McCall said in his book, Maybe We Want to Holler, he said the only time, he said, I was looking for my father all my life and I had to find him in prison. He said a family reunion happens in prison for him. And he said if it happened for him, all those other young black men that were in prison went to prison. This is the only time that they could see a black man. They were in prison. So now look at this interaction in between Purnell and Cain in the scene where he says, raise my son. He knew the affinity that Ronnie had for him. She was going to take care of him. He was going to take care of her. But he had to come up with a different set of instructions in order to raise this man's son, to give him a new lease on life so he didn't end up where they had been. He said, teach him the way we grew up was bullshit. So, nurture. When you look at it, this is my last point. I get off of it since y'all said this is an introduction. Nurture, in regards to understanding what is necessary and what the situation calls for, and being thankful to Almighty God to know the difference for what the situation calls for and being persistent and consistent. South Central, the brother Buddha was talking to the guy that, played Purnell in that scene, and he was in jail, and he had got him out of the situation with the Aryans. And he was like, basically, why do you care so much? And he told him, he said, I had a son, and I was on him. I was on him every day about everything, and his son got killed. And he didn't get a chance to show him how much he loved him. He thought love for him presented differently. So he wanted to make sure to eliminate any kind of thing that looked like weakness in him to build him up. This is what he had in his mind. He didn't get a chance to be tender and kind. He had a chance to be stern with him, and that stern situation caused him to resent him, and then he went into the street, and the street found him. So now he saw somebody with a potential to be something he could never be, a father to his son. And he was on him, but he was on him in a different kind of way. He knew that he cared. He said, why you care? This is what he said to him. Why do you care? And when we out there with them young men and women, and we out there, look, because they got the schemes, they got the scams for you. They're going to try you. They're going to try every little bit that you understand. That's their job. We was their age. We tried it. But somebody saw something in us. Somebody saw something in us enough to not necessarily give us the verbiage of teach us the way we grew up was bullshit. They just showed us. Not just through what they said, but what they did. And somehow we surmised in that space that we have a duty and responsibility to give back to the next generation, as long as we could find those who are willing. And some of them might need a little nudge. So we nudge who need to nudge, and we hug who need to hug to push through in that space and give them that same type of space that we may not even have. The indebtedness from one generation to the next to break the cycle of a repetitive space where it was the lack thereof. That's my intro.
Ashe. Oh, do y'all see why I chose these two men? Do you see? I can't see the comments, but I'm sure if it's comments going on, they see why I have chosen these two men. Before I move forward, I want to address something that each of you said. Nick, you mentioned in numerology the 3 being like the curve of the woman and the 9. You know what it made me think of is, when we think of father, we think rigid. We think, straight arrow, this is dad, But when I see the 9, I see that strength curling over and embracing you in that loving masculinity. They say 9 is be born. This is where the divine masculine and divine feminine do balance themselves out, because after that, we start over with 0 again. So I love that you brought that, and I love that image came to me when you were mentioning the 9, because now I'm really going to have to sit with that one for a minute. I really am. Numerology is not one of the areas where I've studied a lot. However, what I have learned of it is very intriguing. And the fact that image came to my mind when you mentioned that, it was really profound. And Knowledge Born, you said so much. And, I love the fact that you use movie references, because I'm a big movie and music buff. And I use a lot of these things sometimes to tell stories. And I love that you chose that particular scene to talk about. Another thing in Islam is that that a lot of people don't know is that children belong to their father. So in most relationships, when you see in the Western world a mother and a father get divorced, the children go with the mother. In Islam, technically, the children are supposed to go with their father. And I always thought that was very interesting. And I really sat and examined, our history of the culture of our people, and how there comes a time when they send the boys out with the men. They are not even around the women. The women's job is done, and it's time for the men to do their job. And you know, I really thought about that, and I thought about things like, you know, knowing when to apply what thing and how important that is. And so the fact that you shared that, and the fact that most men don't see a man until they're in prison. And I can say from working in the prison systems that a lot of males did not become men until they had time to sit down and, you know, gain knowledge of self and become men, because you have to become a man. In my opinion, I'm only a woman, but I'm telling you, I had to become a woman. Okay, I had to become that. So I thank you both for those beautiful introductions and those points, because you both have given me something to add to my think list, and y'all both know me, so you know my think list is pretty big. So I'll just be adding that on, inshallah. Where I'd like to go right now is the father as an infant in the life. And I was sharing with someone that I saw something where the Supreme Court talked about child support being unconstitutional. And child support is one of those issues we kind of touched on a little bit when we were over there in club. We was jamming in Clubhouse, okay? I'm gonna tell you that. And I thought about the unconstitutional part and all that stuff like that. And while we could spend a lot of time on that, what I want to ask about is in examining the relationships where men are being kept from doing their duty in terms of nurturing. How do you see this? How do you see a solution to this issue that we have going on, outside of obviously our men and women better communicating and understanding the importance of both male and female in nurturing? But what ways do you see and suggest that our men begin to still be able to make those kind of connections, even though they may be outside of the home? Knowledge born.
Yeah, I'm about to say, you got to take that one on.
So in regards to co-parenting, that is one of the most tricky, slippery slopes that an entire society has built the economic sustainable force with. So from an economic standpoint, a household divided is $1 billion industry for the corporations. What a divorce costs, with the spousal support, with the child support, with all of these other aspects in regards to this. Look how many people are getting paid at your demise. Look how many people are being paid by your destruction. None of these things are started by you, yet all of these things you are responsible for. What you do and who you are. Y'all know how I am with mother. You can forget about it. Cannot be relegated to an ability to pay. An ability to pay. Am I saying that you shouldn't pay? Hell no, I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay. That's not what I'm saying. Who you are, your worth, your value, what you provide, who you are cannot be simplified by an ability to pay. And it's not in your best interest to take what was there and consummate it in private to the public. So, in an optimal space, when there is something that is supposed to be a divide, so if the brother and the sister are together and they got together and then, the representative stuff went awry and all kind of stuff, whatever the case may be, none of that has a bearing on the parenting, duty and responsibility. None of it. None of it. None of it. You got together and you consummated, and a life came from you two that you're responsible for, and the world is going to benefit from. So, from your family space, physically, to your ancestral space, spiritually, on both sides of your family agree that this life is supposed to continue. So, this is where your focus is supposed to go. This is where it's supposed to happen. And indiscriminate to the sacrifices and the challenges that come along with it, this is your duty and responsibility. Now, being mindful of outside influences that come in, understand that they're there for a vampiric type of situation. Nothing involved in this outside space is needed for your benefit, only to your detriment, unless you come to a situation and point where you can no longer be amicable in your duties and responsibilities. There's a whole thing in regards to what that really means. And I ain't going to spend a lot of time on that. What I'm going to say in this other space is being consistent. Being consistent. If this is what you can do, this is what you do. If this is the amount of time, this is the amount of time. All of these things are amendable. Yet breaking the promises of what you said you're going to do and the time you said you were going to do it is something that could be irreparable. So the time that you spend should be quality. What you're able to do should be quality, because you are pouring into this life that you were responsible for creating. These other aspects and these challenges are there for you to prove it. To prove it. I've been challenged every kind of way. Like, I'm not telling you something from some book. I'm telling you something from some life. I've been challenged every kind of way you could have been challenged. I've been wronged in every kind of way you can be wrong, but none of that shit is ever going to change who I am and who I am becoming. My children and every child that comes under my care and protection will have that version of me, the best one. So it doesn't matter what these other things are. These other things become opportunities for me to prove it, and it's something I had to learn. My father chose the revolution. My father chose the revolution, and that is a short-lived life that is full with misunderstanding, trauma, hell, and pain, and he chose it because he was built for it. So that was his duty and responsibility, and my mother knew that when she got with him. So she knew that trying to handcuff him into a situation where he could be of no benefit or small benefit, far outweigh his duty and responsibility to the revolution, and he chose it. So that was his choice. And that retributionary spirit that lives within me, it comes from him. And my mother's healing nature, the mind, body, and spirit, the transformative healing soul that she is in me as well. So there was no teetering in between in this holistic space. However, there were challenges that went along with trying to heal too much and trying to be too militant. You understand? So that culminating factor of learning, like you said, Nick, about balance, I had to learn the balance in between myself and what was appropriate versus what wasn't appropriate. So these are all of the things that I had to balance in between self. Now imagine how you have to bring this before a father. As a father who is responsible for lives that are depending on you. And I was in a profession where if you weren't dutiful, it cost somebody their life. If you weren't dutiful to what you were supposed to do, it cost somebody their life. Somebody was going to die because of your carelessness. So when you look at that, and you look at that life in regards to what these perceived challenges are, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, how you're supposed to do it, if you looked at it like a life was connected to it, you would be a little more dutiful. We come from that school. Have you not heard that your word shall be bound regardless to whom or what? Regardless to whom or what? So you might hear somebody use reference to like, yo, word is bond. My word is my bond. This was Scarface told Sosa. He told him that he was like, all I have in this word is my word and my balls, and I don't break them for nobody. And didn't he do it? Didn't he do it? So this word that is there, look at the culminating factors that's associated with your mind. This word that's built up in the mind of this child who looks to you as God, and you give them your word and you fell in your word. What kind of repair is supposed to go into that space? What kind of explanation? The truth. The greatest explanation you could give your child is the truth. Tell them the truth. This family secrets and all this stuff, and I don't know if they ready for it and all this other bullshit, got us in the situation that it got us in. Tell them the truth. Tell them the truth. Tell them the truth. They deserve the truth. And as a matter of fact, they know the truth, and they're testing their ability to be able to trust what you say based off what you say. They know the damn truth. Tell them the truth. Tell them the truth. And when I talked to my father, after all of those years, I talked to him. He had the opportunity to tell me the truth, and he didn't tell me the truth. The lie was more important in his mind and heart than the truth was. And I said I would never, ever, ever not tell my children the truth, no matter what it cost. No matter what it costs, they know the truth. They can decide what to do with the truth after. My last point is that movie Fences with Denzel and Viola Davis. He's talking to his older son, and how he talked to his older son versus how he talked to his younger son was like night and day. He talked to his older son about the hell that he caught from his father but didn't see in the hell that he caught from his father how it visited on to him and to his other son. That space of that hell that went along with our lives in regards to those things that we wish we had or didn't have, remember them, heal from them, and in this next generation, break the cycle. This next generation, break the cycle and help them through the process of breaking whatever challenges that they're here to face so they can break the cycle. So there are no more cycles other than those that are righteous. So with the truth and that ability to overcome these obstacles, as I said at the beginning, the ability to know what's to be done and what the situation calls for isn't always the same. So these are two things and two motivating factors that I had to learn in my life the hard way, the hardest way I could possibly learn them. But the truth is the truth. The truth is the truth. So that's me and my little brief. Hopefully I left something for you, Nick. You understand what I'm saying?
That's easy. Now you flipped it. Now I'm following you. But that's all good. I don't need much anyway. I'll just say that, unfortunately, when it comes to that scenario, Rue, that you presented with the mother and the father and the separation and the child support thing, oftentimes it's the mother and the father that are getting in their own ways when it comes to nurturing the child. And, that has a detrimental effect on the child. And oftentimes it's, it stems from, from the pride, the pride of that mother and the father, or the resentment from one parent to the other. And this is just me speaking from observation. I don't have any biological children myself. I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning of the program, but we did talk about community dads. So if there is some resentment, between the mother and the father, in which the father is being limited or restricted in their access to nurturing their children, this is a time for the community dads to step in the fold. Granted, the mother doesn't get in her own way again. So it all goes back to, and you all know about this more than I do, about the concept of the village, and how far we've gotten away from that. But I will also ask this: if one of those parents is apprehensive towards having a mediator or someone to step into the fold, I must ask, what's the difference between having a community dad step in or some other man outside of the father stepping in? What's the difference between that and you calling the government to mediate, in the court systems with the child support system? So those are just things that I'm kind of throwing out there. Knowledge Born and I, we were building offline while you were getting your technology together, and we were just discussing how we're here to discuss solutions, but the solutions don't necessarily come easily and simple. And you and I, we were talking offline about having conversations about the conversation, and how some members of our community will complain about us continuing to have these conversations, not understanding, overstanding, and understanding that we're trying to heal from decades and decades and centuries of trauma and pain. And, you know, the solution, it's not going to come overnight if we're dealing with hundreds of years of pain and trauma, you know. So that's my thoughts on it. And if that mother is apprehensive about having someone physically step into the fold, for the time being, they might need someone that can indirectly provide that nurturing. Brother Knowledge Born Allah mentioned Nathan McCall, who became a man in prison. Rue, you mentioned become a man in prison. You know, I had that book somewhere on that shelf behind me, but you know, I could bring out a passage and give it to that child if that child is you know, at the age to read that material, and Nathan McCall becomes an indirect, you know, figure that stands in the fold. Or you know, how impressionable our children are, and they look to celebrities and athletes and entertainers as you know, idols and figures. We find those positive examples, and they become the indirect you know, father figures that come into the fold until that mother and that father heal, and they're able to have the maturity to learn how to communicate and nurture, you know, have a more hands-on approach to properly nurturing that child. So I'll leave it at that. I'll yield and let you process all that, Rue, and because I know we said a lot collectively.
Yes, yes, yes. And I'm so grateful. And I'm grateful to everybody that is here listening. Thank you for being here on Do the Knowledge Radio platform with Mama Lisa Temple and my beautiful guest, Knowledge Born Allah, Nick Westbrooks, as we talk about the nurturing and father connection. You know, here in the Healing Chambers, for those of you who are, this is your first time here, and just a reminder to those who have been here before, the Healing Chambers is here for us to discuss those things that will help us heal holistically. A lot of times when we think about illness, we think about dis-ease, and we talk about those things, and we talk about, though, how other things, as far as your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, has an effect on your health. And so I know that that many times we can't see the direct correlation between the traumas we have experienced in our lives and where we are now in terms of sometimes our physical illnesses, mental illnesses, and otherwise. But here in the Healing Chambers, we are here to open space, hold the space, and allow you into our lives and allow you to share your things with us so we can all heal together. We are healing out loud together, doing it and not ashamed of it. And with that, I wanted to back up for a second because, you know, community dads are important to me for a couple of reasons, but I'd like to start here. I didn't have my biological father in my life when I was growing up. I had a stepfather. And, you know, for some people, a stepfather could be a really, really fantastic thing. And for some people, it can be the beginning of a new terror. I got someplace in the middle. And the reason why I'm going to say I got someplace in the middle is because if you were to ask me in my younger state what the male purpose was or what the masculine energy was in a relationship in terms of nurturing, like what man meant to nurturing, all I ever got from what we got from our dad was he came with us when we had sports stuff. He taught us about, like, you know, auto mechanic stuff and all kind of stuff like that, practical stuff. And when we did something wrong, he was the one who administered the whoopings. It was the wait till your father get home energy. So I can't speak for my siblings, but I can't say that I loved my father. I was afraid of my father. I was afraid of him. So all the things I did good not because, necessarily I wanted to. I did because I didn't have to wait till my father got home, because that was the only thing he did. I can tell you, I never had my stepfather tell us that he loved us. And I don't think that was because he didn't. I think it was because that was not how he was raised. He was raised in the South by a deep South man who had been on the chain gang, hard as rocks. They just, my great grandmother's name is Grandma Roxy May. So we ain't talking about no easy people. We talking about hardened people, hardened by the years of being in segregated South and slavery South and all of this good stuff like this. So he didn't share that with us in terms of nurturing. So I didn't see a softer side of a man until I looked at my uncle. My uncle, on the other hand, was, well educated, out in the world. Even though he didn't have any children, he kept the responsibility to my mother as she was the baby. When she had her children, he came in and did that uncle thing for us. And that was the softer side of father that we saw. So we had to get our nurturing in different places. We thought what we were learning of discipline from one and love from the other, not understanding that what we were getting that we thought was discipline was abuse, but we won't leave that where it is. And what we were getting over here in love, it was so much more to it that we just did not know. It wasn't until I got in school and I had my very first man teacher that I realized my experience with my father made me afraid of any man who was in authority, because he had abused his authority. And so when I thought of father and nurturing, or this masculine energy, I thought of someone who enforces their will upon you. They're not there to listen to you. They're not there to wipe your shoulder off. They ain't kissing your boo-boo on your knee. They're going to tell you, get up, brush it off, and just go. That was my experience with nurturing. So when I started to have children, I fell into that with my first children. I fell into that. What you crying for? Stop crying, man up, that kind of energy, because that was what I learned. But when I started to understand how much damage was done to me as a child, that it was affecting me now, it was what made me go in and start to do the work. So what I'd like to ask you both is, when is it? Well, because it was different for everyone. I'm sorry, not when is it, but what is it that a person can sit down with first and start to unravel some of the things that may have them where they are now? Now, Nick, you shared a clip from 19 Keys, I think it was, about studying our parents and studying our grandparents to help us better understand ourselves. And Knowledge Born, you even spoke a little bit to that. But if you both could expound on that a little bit, I would really, really appreciate it.
Yes. So, in regards to that clip, we know that biologically, the child comes from the father and the mother. So they're going to have some part of that identity within them, and the child is the extension of the parents. So if you don't know where to start, that's a good place to start, by talking to, your parents, whoever's available, and getting some insight into your upbringing. Rue, you have memories of your experience. Well, all of us have memories of our experience, but I mention you because you discussed your experience with your stepfather. But there was a time in our childhood where we don't remember that, or we weren't conscious of it. So when we're really trying to get to the root of things, sitting down with our parents or even our grandparents and asking them those questions about, what was my upbringing like during my developmental years, or my early stages. What were you all going through as my parents or grandparents? That can give some insight into what the child is experiencing, or some of the traits that the child inherited from the developmental years through their adult years. So I would say that's a good place to start that unraveling, and then going from there, just I would say taking a self inventory, thinking about, who am I? Who are you? We talk about knowledge of self often and how important that is. And knowledge of self is a concept that's been, discussed back in ancient times. And knowledge of self is a broad umbrella. Oftentimes when we think of knowledge of self, we just think about us being, the original people of the planet Earth, but it's much more than that. On a practical level, who are you in terms of your likes and dislikes? What do you desire? What do you need? What do you yearn for? These are all important things to start that unraveling, that process of finding out what's what.
I gotta follow Nick again. I see how y'all doing. See how y'all doing. I appreciate it though. As a father who's been both, that authoritative, militaristic, militant approach, and having to atone for that. That's deeper than an apology. Atoning is something completely different than just an apology. And not a justification, but a heartfelt, sit my children down and talk to them and explain to them that this is how I grew up. I grew up in the extension courthouse. I grew up in that environment. So in that environment, these things happen. And then anytime there was a problem in my youth, through my adulthood, all the way into the vocation, if there was a discrepancy, I fixed it with my hands. I didn't engage it with my mind. The only aspect of it that I engaged with my mind was the degree or severity that I was going to fix it with my hands. So that's a modality that works when that situation calls for it. However, there's no way to live your life. But I didn't know that. I was in a sociology class, and I remember they was talking about corporal punishment. and, beatings and things like that. And I was like, how do you start something new when this is all you know? And my teacher looked at me, he said, that's how you started. You questioned it. And it sent me on a spiral. And I had to learn those things when they were appropriate versus when they weren't appropriate. And I had to go to my children and say, yo, I fucked up. I had to be straight up with them in truth and look them in the eyes and apologize for the transgressions. I would behead somebody if they touched my daughter. I would behead somebody if they touched any of your daughters. What the hell would I look like as a man normalizing abuse in the life of a young black girl and calling it discipline and love? And the same is true for my sons. The same is true for your children. So now I had to come to the realization that this was not something that I was going to continue. And then how would I go about the process of unlearning something that had been ingrained generationally? Every male and female that was an aunt, uncle, older family member that I came in contact with and I interfaced, I know them from an ass whooping. I did something wrong. My mother whooped me. She got on the phone. She called my uncles. My uncles came over and whooped me. My aunts, the whole family whooped my ass. You understand? And all it did was make me more violent in the street. More violent in the street. And that's something that I had to come to the realization. So when we have conversations and when we hear our brothers and sisters, because we got commune, we don't commune, we ain't calling nobody. So when we got commune with people and they say, oh, I don't beat my children, and that black look, like we think that's a black look where we all look at everybody like, what, you don't beat your child, what's wrong with you? And knowing that as a perpetual cycle of violence that continues, that we perpetuate, whether verbally or non-verbally, and we continue the cycle to go. And we call that suitable, and we don't take it back to the plantation. We don't take it back to the plantation. We can go back to ancient times. Discipline was enforced. However, there was so much wisdom with the discipline. So much wisdom with the discipline. Now, Rue, if your stepfather came to you and reminded you of who you are, and every single time that you go out in the world, you're an ambassador to this family representing two sides of your bloodline. Your first name and your last name is an indicator to their family and how you operate in that family space within the world. What you want to accomplish in your greatest self. Why wouldn't you want to put your best foot forward? You are representing the sum total of millions of ancestors who came before you and saw fit for you to incarnate at this particular time to do your best work. Every time you pick up a pen, every time you pick up a pencil, any interaction that you have in the public, this is who you're representing. This is all they're going to know. That's something completely different. That's something completely different. Then if you go out there and act a fool, I'm going to whip your motherfucking ass. That's something different. I've been both of those parents at the same time as a father, and that shit is hellified, I tell you. It's a hellified space to be in. I didn't want to go to the school because my mama came up to the school and my mama said I could come up to this school, I'm going to beat your ass. And she whipped my ass in that school. And I know that it's a society that exists based off of competitive edge that is given to those who don't look like us for their future. And what you impart very young in these children is how they're going to go. So the ones who was downtrodden, the ones who was hungry, the ones who was broken, getting abused at home, you wouldn't know it in school because they was acting a fool in school. They was terrorized at home and terrorists in school. 90% of them. They were terrorizing in school because they were terrorized at home. And then the other ones was withdrawn, socially withdrawn. They smelled a little funny. They might have gained some weight, whatever it was, for that cycle of abuse that was ritualized every time that they walked in the house and before they left out of the door, before they came into the public, was a result of the trauma that was going on in their home. So the straight A student to the class bully, it was all perspective and respective of how that home environment was there, and I had to learn the difference. If my children feared me, like in the movie Fences, this is what Rose was telling Troy. He don't love you, he fear you. He told his father, I used to be afraid of you. Every time he heard his voice, he got scared. This is what he was training for. He was training for that moment to confront his father for all the hell, and his father didn't know that the hell that had been visited upon him that he hated from his father had came to his children through him. Through him. So he made the decision while building that fence that it was going to end with him. But he couldn't be in the picture. You can say that the cycle is going to end with you and you still be in the picture. You got to get that work done that Nick was talking about. You got to get that work done that's necessary to heal that trauma from yourself. So when I talk to my children, I ain't justifying none of my behavior. I told them plainly, very truthfully, that this is all I knew. This was my lived experience. So after that, I spent just as much time and effort to atone through changed behavior, and grace and mercy and prayer and all kinds of things that's associated with it, and laugh and then explain like, damn, I did that same shit when I was your age. I did it. What you lying for? You're not good at it. I'm glad you ain't good at it. Nobody like a liar, not even liars. Oh, you thought you was slick? Man, that's what's up. That's what our holy books is writing about. Like, oh, they got mad at you today. Oh, they wanted to stone you today. Yeah, let me tell you about homie. Let me tell you about homegirl. This is how ancients spoke, because you didn't want to be the one that was responsible for the detriment of your family name. That sounds like it's Eastern philosophy. That's us. You didn't want to be responsible for bringing shame and dishonor on your family name. So those things came with weighty consequences in the society depending on what was appropriate. So what's going to be appropriate in your society? And it starts in your household. Them social norms and things like that, them outside influences, I tell you, they ain't never for your benefit. They for your detriment. So if you in your society and your society is telling you that you should physically abuse your children, that ain't the society for you to exist in. And explain that to your children. It's not just me. Everybody that's around, everybody that's in our life want me to beat you. I refuse. I refuse. That's something different. If that's where you at, but if you want to physically abuse your children and you want to be responsible for further detriment, and you want to justify it and say, "Hey, I got beatings. I turned out all right. They made a man out of me or a woman out of me or whatever the case. You looking for some children to abuse and beat. You can't wait to have children so you can beat your children. You got a problem. You got a problem." So these are all of the struggles that I had to confront in regards to breaking a real cycle. So when I seen that movie, Antoine Fisher and Denzel was talking to Derek Luke and he gave him that book, Slave Community, I didn't know how close to home that was. And this is how we operate. Because in most of the society, when we talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you're worrying about food, clothing, and shelter on the lowest rung, you can't even get into the highest rung, which is self-actualization. If food, clothing, and shelter is a struggle, nothing could be imparted to you. And anything that will subside those rumblings of hunger in your stomach, whatever that cost will be, is something that will have you out here operating in your highest detriment. So when you justify things, and this is where the abuse comes in. You're in a society where you're struggling for food, clothing, and shelter, and you bring some food home, and your child, that's your child, say, "I don't want to eat this. It tastes nasty." You're ready to whoop them. Because they don't know the hell you had to go through to bring this food into the house for them to consume. They just know they don't like it. And it's the truth. You want them to lie to you? They don't like it. So it look like they trying you. And then you rely on all of the generations before you that this is the course of action. This is the course of action. Instead of reasoning with your child and say, "Hey, this is where we at financially. This is what I can provide for the moment. It may not taste good to you. It may not be something that you prefer, but this is all that I can provide. If you don't want this kind of situation, this space, like not, oh, I'm the father and you're supposed to do what I say." Like, that shit don't work like that. It ain't work for you. But we'll seek to visit those things and then act as if we wasn't children and we wasn't inquisitive. We don't want questions from our children. We don't want our children to question it. These are all ritualized things that came from an experience, the social experiment called America, that is to the highest and greatest detriment of Black people in this country, in the world at large. And these are some of the things that we need to come to the table. Look, Nick, you said they don't even want to have a conversation no more. They don't even want to have, like, why y'all still talking about that? These things are still happening right now. We got to be community dads and community fathers and community mothers because they ain't got no mother and father at home. Instead of us being an augment, another example of what they see at home that's righteous, we got to deal with the inverse. We got to come to homes not like social workers. We got to come to homes like military sometimes. Been there, done that. Then I got to look at my own home. Am I causing a proper development space? Am I facilitating a proper development environment in my own home? Or am I a catalyst for a further divide and a destructive force in my home? Gotta look in the mirror and see.
I say, oh man, the wisdom in the building. Both of you have said so many profound things, and it's like while I'm sitting here, I'm like, just all the things are going through my mind. I grew up in that Core family house, and I grew up in that, you do what you told, you don't ask no questions. And I'll be honest, I'll tell people this every single time. I am a firm advocate of self-refinement, realizing things that weren't or are not good about yourself, and refining them, or need some fine-tuning. And I think about when we were young, we didn't know how to emotionally respond to anything. We didn't know when to laugh, we didn't know when to cry. We just knew to be quiet because we're supposed to be quiet. And then we, you know what I mean? And then we go off and do whatever we do. But I remember one time not crying after I had got a spanking, and how that infuriated my dad. And I think it was kind of in that moment that I realized that his toolbox was limited. You know what I mean? It's like, I was always kind of advanced in my thinking, and and I always saw patterns in things. And I thought about how he taught us about being carpenters and mechanics, and we had these toolboxes for each, and all these different tools that you could you had to use this tool for that, and this tool for that. In a pinch, you could use this tool or whatever. But I realized, I think in that moment, that was his only tool, and that he didn't know that was all father was in my mind. And if he couldn't be that anymore, what are you here for? Like, you don't even do nothing. Like, all you do is we wait till you get home. So I mean, why are you here? If I don't need no more whoopings, what else is your job? Because you're not showing us anything else in terms of, you teaching us how to physically do things in the world and make us money, because you tell us that food, clothing, shelter is all the things. So as long as we able to handle that, you're not telling us anything else. And we watching you talk crazy to us, to mom, to whoever. And so we weren't learning how to be. We weren't learning that divine masculine of how to be. Like, what is a man's job? What is your father's job? I didn't know what a father's job was, because the only job my dad had was to go to work and to come, and we wait for him to get home in case we did something wrong. He mowed the lawn. He took out the garbage. That was his job. It wasn't embracing us and telling us that he loved us and sitting down and imparting wisdom about, whatever. That was mommy's job. So when I do these kind of shows, it's because many of us had that life. And now many of us, especially my age, have grandchildren. We done already did what we done did to our children. All we can do now, like you said, is ask for their forgiveness and make atonement. And one of the ways of making atonement is by having these conversations. The ones they ask us why we still have it. Because we don't want these things to continue. I don't want my granddaughters to fear their fathers. I don't want them to feel like the only time they can go to dad is when I need him to beat somebody up or he got to whoop me. One or the other. I'm going to go get my dad to do blah, 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 blah. You know, because that's what dad is. Dad is Brutus. He coming in, do the whooping and cleaning house, and then he go back into whatever hole he live in. We don't even know what dad do. You know what I'm saying? We don't even know. But like I said, it was when I got that first male teacher, a man I had to be around all day, every day, 5 days a week. And I was like, oh, he talked to us. He tell us stuff. He told us we was wrong. He told us we was too loud. He told us to stop chewing with our mouth open. Wait a minute, who is this person? You understand what I'm saying? It was amazing because here was this teacher teaching me more than my father. And it wasn't that he was better or worse than my father. It was just that here I am spending all this time. You figure like this, my father was leaving when we got up in the rise, and we were getting ready to go to bed when he got home in the eve. We saw him on the weekends, and like I said, when we had to get a whooping. But here I am with this man 5 days a week, and I'm seeing that it's all kinds of stuff he can teach us. And one of the things he did teach us was about emotional intelligence and how we respond to things and being emotionally balanced. You know, many of us don't want to talk about the fact that our fathers weren't around and we learned all of our emotional things from our moms. And most of us respond emotionally, you know, negatively and emotionally to everything. You know, we ask ourselves how these young boys and young girls be flying off the handle like they do because they didn't have that strength curling around them, showing them what to do with that energy. They didn't have that 9. They didn't have that balance, you know, militant and loving father. They didn't have that. They either had all or nothing. I have very few people in my life that grew up with their mother and their father full time and their parents is still married. Nick is one of them. And I remember asking him, I'm so serious with tears in my eyes. I remember asking him, what was that like? What was that like? Do you feel different? Do you know, and I remember thinking about how I watched him treat people. And I'm like, you could tell he was raised right. You know, and it was just like that put such a shine on you, on self when you meet someone who is actually emotionally balanced. It makes you realize you off the rock pot. You know what I mean? So it's amazing that we can still come together and have these kind of conversations and do the things we need to do to stop perpetuating these same kind of energies. So what I would like, I'm not going to keep us much longer because we already doing the most, which I feel so special, you know, that I have you two for this long. But what I would love to hear from you is what aspects, it's 2 questions. What is it that someone who had a young man, gentleman, that has not had proper nurturing, what is something that he can do to start to heal himself now, besides, you know, just what we said, like looking at self and all kind of things like that, some kind of practical application? And what thing would you like to see more nurtured to help with the emotional intelligence of our children moving forward?
So you, Nick.
Yeah, I was rolling it around in my head a little bit.
Okay.
Questions, yeah.
Well, I got a video I could play real quick if you want to take a little pause for the cause. Is you good with that? All right, let's do that. Let's get some motivation going on up in here.
Absolutely.
My seeds, man, I put that on me. I make sure they gotta eat on the job, on the streets for my seeds. Young kings, young queens, RBG, red, black, and the green plant seeds. Now that's what I call my team, family over everything. I ain't never out of reach for my seeds. And that's how we gotta be, real ones follow me. Each one, teach one, plant seeds.
Microphone checking my status since I've been crowned father. I grind harder, a wife and 2 daughters, a righteous black God in that red, black, and green. That's balance for the beam, huh? Family over everything. I'm dropping seeds every chance I get, and then I watch them all grow. No magic trick. Sankofa, you know, bruh, gotta put that on your platter. Don't care about what they say, we say black fathers matter.
When it comes to my seeds, gotta keep that real energy. Literally, every single day create memories. Figuratively, I orchestrate moves like a symphony. Vividly, I sit with these thoughts like epiphanies. Literally, can change the game and make history. Officially, my daughter never see me in a penitentiary. That shit to me, cause all we got is us, all we got is trust. Every day I gotta rush, I don't believe in love. Man, I put that on me. I make sure they gotta eat on the job, on the streets for my seeds. Young kings, young queens, RBG, red, black, and the green plant seeds. Now that's what I call my team, family over everything. I ain't never out of reach for my seeds. And that's how we gotta be, real ones follow me. Each one, teach one,
I'm in
plant
the cut
seeds.
like a back street. I let my son ride shotgun while these other suckers take the back seat, and that's the only one that can pass me. Something heavy in my diaper bag, homie, you can match me. Riding down the avenues with the seat back. Who that? Diamondback, proud to be black, that's your daddy. Sitting clean in the rag seat, going hard for my committee and La Familia's mad deep. Black fathers, yeah.
Look, I'm from a spot where blacks get rejected. Selling dope and gangbanging get you well respected. Being a felon get you well neglected. Where the black fatherhood challenge was accepted. To show the youth a better route. Teach them right from wrong and what the benefits of life about. Don't get caught up in the streets, you can make it out. Put that on my soul, I'ma show my kids a safer route.
Man, I put that on me. I make sure they gotta eat on the job, on the streets for my seeds. Young kings, young queens, RBG, red, black, and the green plant seeds. Now that's what I call my team, family over everything. I ain't never out of reach for my seeds. And that's how we gotta be, real ones follow me. Each one, teach one, plant seeds.
Today I will conclude our talk on Father and his role. His role is so mighty as the head of his household. His role is so mighty in helping to build a nation that really we could talk all year on Father and never give him enough. But time will not permit us to do that.
That's fire right there. We're always talking about how you come with the bangers, the music. It's powerful right there, man. Fired up back here from that joint right there.
Yeah, this is my joint. I heard that joint a while ago, and it never gets old, you know.
Yeah.
And only play stuff from people I know and support. So
right, as you
don't
should.
got a good relationship yet now. Ain't none of that. So
as you should. Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that because I was able to think on that first question that Rue asked us about, you know, young men seeking out that nurturing that they may be lacking, and you know, and I say if they're watching this video, or if you know someone that needs this, I mean, I could definitely volunteer my information. You can send me a message. I won't speak for Knowledge Born. I let him offer himself if he would like to, or even the sister Rue. She has those resources and those connections, and the brothers in the video too. But I would say, send us a message, send Knowledge Born a message, send Rue a message, and we'll put you in contact. If it's not one of us that can provide that assistance, we could find someone that can. Between the three of us, we have our tribes, our communities, our networks, so we can find the resources that you need. So that's my answer to the first question, Rue. I know you kind of came in during in the middle of that response, but I was just saying I volunteered ourselves for those if they're watching this video and they're in need of, that young man is in need of that nurturing or has that gap, they can reach out to us and we can either provide that or point them in the right direction. Now for also extending that first question, my response to that first question, I will also say to look up the organizations in your community, in your town. See what organizations are around. They don't necessarily have to be organizations that are focused specifically on males, but there might be men within those community organizations, whether they're community, religious, cultural, even athletic organizations. If that young man doesn't have that immediate man or that teacher like you have, Rue, that open your eyes, just do a search and see what's in your local communities. So that would be my response to the first question. And the second question is what would I think it was, what would we like to see more in terms of nurturing our children? Well, I forgot what I was watching. I don't know if it was one of the clips that Knowledge Born sent to us earlier, but I was listening to something that said that we aren't taught in school, how to love or how to nurture. So I think there should be more explicit and more deliberate teaching and education when it comes to nurturing. It's more based on what we've been conversing and building on. It sounds like it kind of comes in a more indirect sense, from experiences or reflecting on our experiences. But I would like to see more of direct, explicit conversations on nurturing, what it means to nurture. What do we expect from our parents? As parents, what do we expect from our children in terms of nurturing? So I would say more explicit and direct conversations and teaching and education on that.
I think I'm gonna say a half a sentence because Nick said I gotta give up my information. So you ain't gonna keep punking me when we get 40, Nick. That's all I gotta say. You understand what I'm saying? DTK Youth Services is available for that particular purpose, and also DTK Strategic Planning is also good for that purpose. I don't want to relegate young man to age. So we work with at-risk youth from the ages of 7 to 18. And being a young at-risk youth, you just wish you was there with somebody to provide a opportunity for you to be able to see yourself, whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent, and then you know where to go, back to know thyself. So when I was young, I learned about Black history. I learned martial arts, and the first time I went to a museum was from different people in our community. They shared different aspects with you if they found you worthy. So somebody saw enough in me to impart, Black history. But I learned Black history at home first, and my mother hooked us up with martial artists. You see what I'm saying? And taught us that aspect. She had enough wisdom in her mind to say, okay, this is where I end and you begin. So the community type of situation, the village had to come through and fill in those gaps. I was talking about the disciplinarian thing. Even the village concept came for that. You see what I'm saying? So either you was the party or you was the party. You understand? You want to be in the injured party in that perspective. So, that she was a healer that continued to heal many people, and she was a fine line of distinction between health and wellness and detriment. So those things were there. And me seeing those things, that was an at-risk youth working with at-risk youth ever since I was an at-risk youth. You see what I'm saying? So I often tell the people I was half old dog and half Sharif in my hood. So it was I don't know if it was a perfect balance, but it was a balance in between the two. So you might have got Sharif, you might have got old dog, you might have got both. You might have got Furious Styles, whatever, you see what I'm saying, whatever the case may be. So it just depended on where it was and, I guess what the situation called for. So DTK Empower You Youth Services and DTK Strategic Planning was set in mind from 7 to 18 and from 19 to 35. Just because you turn in age doesn't mean you know what's going on. So what kind of benefit could you've been in at the age of 19 was somebody's there to help you map out a strategic plan for you in the rest of your life. The cells are waiting, the military is waiting, the insane asylum is waiting, and the graveyard is waiting for those young Black minds. The Oracle said to Neo, like, a war is coming and you're all that stand in his way. That's the same thing as Kwame Ture saying the hunt is on and you're the prey. So you're there. You're there. And it goes to the second question of what you would like to see more of. I'm seeing it, the adage of being the change you want to see. You can roll with that. Be that change that you want to see, but understand that example. Understand that example that is there. If you can't be it, then you won't see it. If you can't be it, then you won't see it. So remember, everything that you say and you do and everything you don't say and you don't do, somebody's taking note of. And they're going to use that as an example of the right or the wrong way to do something. Especially these young men and these young women. It's like a sponge. Like a sponge, they soaking it up. So that brain computer system that they're operating in, you're programming them with your ways and actions. Your inaction or your action. So that's something that you want to take a hold of and, be mindful of what you're listening to, what you ingest, those food you eat, those words that you say, those things that you type online when you're having a good day or a bad day. Somebody's taking that into their brain computer and they're formulating how they're going to actualize their experience, oftentimes based off of yours, whether it's directly or indirectly. So being mindful of those things and going back to being the change that you want to see, being that change. So if you want, active fathers in the role, our Black Fathers Committee, they have a thing where they organize young Black fathers and those expecting fathers. That's something that's there. You see what I'm saying? Like you expecting to have a child. You got a child on the way. You don't know what the hell is going on. Building that communal space. Well, we talked about the retirement home. Where you throw off the shackles of father and grandfather, and you get a chance to laugh at the young folk. Coming in like, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this child and blah blah blah. You understand what I'm saying? Like, so have a community space, set up where in this space you're no longer plagued by this title. Plagued by this title. You could come and be you. You can come be an elder in that society. Whatever the case may be, you could come in that society and you're no longer plagued by those shackles of, I've been a mother most of my life or a father most of my life, and now I'm a grandmother or a grandfather, and this because these things are roles. These things aren't the subtotal of your experience. These are roles that you took on. These are graduations, these are promotions, but they're not fixed for you for the rest of your life. So that actualization of having community where you can go and you can retire over there. You see what I'm saying? Like, they had cheers, everybody, you go where everybody know your name. Norm went up in there, everybody knew Norm. You see what I'm saying? No matter what was going on, Norm come here, you have to know everybody, Norm. That was it. So that place where you're not known for what you do in the outside world, you're known for what you contribute in that segment of society. Many of our ancestral greats took that to their grave. They were somebody's mother or somebody's father. And, that's the highest thing that could be bestowed upon them, but that's not the sum total. There was somebody before that experience and then somebody after that experience. Ingesting that and taking that in so deeply is something that we shouldn't, cleave to in the way where it becomes detrimental. Going back to what you were saying in regards to balance, Nick. So for the young man and woman who's out there and they want to learn a way to heal and find their way, I would say lastly to them, which I should have said firstly, cleave unto God and not unto men. Find your answers in God first. God will lead you to those men. He and her. That's their job and responsibility. God will lead you to those men and women that's going to help you. You seek God and God will seek you. I know I should have started like that, but I was on the road. But I want to end like that because this become a lost art. We don't seek God last. We're supposed to seek God first. But we seek God after we done sort everything else. And the last thing you want is the affairs of your life in God's hands. I know we got that good word say, we give it to God. That's the last place you want it to have, cat daddy. After you done did everything first. Because God done watched you fumble around and go through all of these other steps and phases and spaces and all that. God and your ancestors like, oh, okay, fam. All right, you want to come over here? It's going to cost you. It's going to cost you greatly. If you want God to intervene in your affairs, if you're still alive after the fact, you might not be so thankful for what it costs. So if you're there and you're trying to figure out a way to go and heal and get it together, that divine space is there for you. Seek that. Seek that guidance. Seek that ancestral guidance. Seek that guidance of God before men. We'll be back.
Thank you both so much for being with me.
Oh, I think she won again.
That's all right. I'm a professional. I'm gonna play this joint real quick, and hopefully everything will get by the time.
No need for fame, black fathers are legendary. Watching He Got Game, coming from the hood, often misunderstood, but still, black fathers are necessary. Fighting the penitentiary as well as the cemetery. Only right I wrote a song made for my brothers. And whether or not you get along with your baby mothers, our babies love us, our babies need us. He just might be that black father, the baby Jesus. More precious than a stone from Sierra Leone. That's a child of a black father, the heir to the throne. Before mine and that diamond in the dirt don't come out shining, they come out muddy. Babies born bloody before the huggies and onesies. Birth from the black essence, so it's unnatural for a black father to lack presence. There to provide lessons when babies ask questions. To guide them through imperfections, doubts and transgressions. To teach a foreign language about their ancestors. To read body language, face and hand gestures. To love their body image, hear strand textures. Learning instruments, jam sessions and band lessons. Car seat buckle ups, teaching them boxing uppercuts. More to manhood than muscle ups and busting nuts. More to childhood than Donald Duck and Double Dutch. Nothing can replace a father's love and mother's touch. No need for fame, black fathers are legendary. Watching He Got Game, coming from the hood, often misunderstood, but still, black fathers are necessary. Fighting the penitentiary as well as the cemetery. Only right I wrote a song made for my brothers. And whether or not you get along with your baby mothers, our babies love us, our babies need us. He just might be that black father, the baby Jesus. The mothers who stand in the way of fathers and their children, then go say he left them abandoned like a building that's tore up from the floor to the ceiling. Paint peeling, I ain't feeling women who find joy stealing the joy of a father, not letting his boy see him, or the joy of his daughter, whose dad is a loyal supporter based on a court order. Filthy, you need Florida water and a bush bath. You despise his eyes, despise his mustache. Shout out to the fathers walking the good walk, good path. Every child need a father for a good talk, good laugh. Why make a good dad look bad for a child support check if he absent with welfare at your doorstep? Had him locked, ain't feel remorse yet. Poor sweat, nightmares like a war vet. A karma catching you slipping, floors wet. Though your mom's babysit, sadly a nanny can't replace a daddy's place in the family. No need for fame, black fathers are legendary. Watching He Got Game, coming from the hood, often misunderstood, but still, black fathers are necessary. Fighting the penitentiary as well as the cemetery. Only right I wrote a song made for my brothers. And whether or not you get along with your baby mothers, our babies love us, our babies need us. He just might be that black father, the baby Jesus. Black fathers are legendary, let's call names. LeBron James, not cause he called plays or win ball games, or can take it to the hole or shoot long range, because he take care of home beyond just suits and Balmains. Robert Nesta Marley, you can never discredit. Died young but left a legacy his children inherit. With them in spirit, El Hajj Malik, MLK. Create fear how a black father could be here now, dead next day. Bow heads, let's pray for the fathers turned martyrs. George Washington, Carvers and Marcus. Black soil covers the carcass. Black fathers never die, they multiply like the square root to pi. Same rules apply if you shoe shine or wear suit and tie. The line of work don't define the worth of you and I. Never saw my pops work for another man. A mentality I don't expect this world to understand. No need for fame, black fathers are legendary. Watching He Got Game, coming from the hood, often misunderstood, but still, black fathers are necessary. Fighting the penitentiary as well as the cemetery. Only right I wrote a song made for my brothers. And whether or not you get along with your baby mothers, our babies love us, our babies need us. He just might be that black father, the baby Jesus.
Oh, come on, man. Now you came with the Messiah. Messiah, that's my man. I remember watching him perform at the Poetry Cypher at Howard University back in 2009, 2010. Yeah, we graduated from the same alma mater. Yeah, that's my guy right there. That's the brother. That's the guy right there.
Salute, salute.
Yeah.
Salute.
Yeah, salute the Messiah.
Yeah, you gotta finish all strong, man. Finish all
Oh
strong.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
as we close out, you got any final thoughts? You got any acknowledgments? You got a final message to the people where to find you and how they can support your endeavors? You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'll put a nice bow on this conversation from my perspective, and just starting at the top and just keeping in mind that part of healing these nurture wounds from the fatherhood perspective is remembering that nurture and nurturing isn't gender specific. Applies to both the mother and the father when we talk about balance. Also, just a reminder, just keeping in mind that there's no manual to this nurture thing, or to this fatherhood thing, or to this motherhood thing. So we can't expect perfection, but we should be seeking to, if we're not healed, we should be seeking to heal every day. We should be seeking to improve and constantly elevate every day. Doing the best that we can with what we have and what we know, recognizing that there's always room for improvement and growth. Continuing to have these conversations, these positive conversations and productive conversations. Have to emphasize that, because there's a lot of toxicity and negativity going on, when we have these conversations. So making sure we're continuing to have these productive conversations and make sure that we're discussing solutions and sharing solutions, because you never know who you can help. Just continuing to educate ourselves and learn from our own experiences and learn from the experiences of others. Also keeping in mind that we're stronger united than we are separated. And if you need if you need assistance, just ask. Don't be too proud to ask. Find that trusted source, like Knowledge Born said, of course, starting with God, starting with the Most High, and then just asking for what you need, asking to be given. And the foundation to all of this is knowing thyself, knowing who you are, knowing your background, and using that to grow and using that to heal. So, I know today, Knowledge Born and I, we kind of laugh and joke about having to follow each other, but we just having a good time. We're not competing about who can flex who can flex the most. Today, I talked about the number 9. Talk about the number 9 earlier in that Pythagorean system of the word nurture. We are also in the 9 universal day today. So on this 9 universal day, we're offering this wisdom, offering our anecdotes and our experience as an expression of our universal love to you all. And we hope that that inspires you, as the number 9 also represents inspiration. And the number 9 is also about endings and completion. So if you have that nurture wound, that father nurture wound, or even that mother nurture wound that you need to heal, today is the day that you bring an ending or completion, or let go of the pain and start your healing journey today and start anew. If you would like to reach out to me, my Instagram is Mr. Westbrooks, MrWestBrooks. I'm also on Facebook, Nick Westbrooks, just how it's spelled on my name tag right there on the screen. So peace to everybody, and I'm out.
right? I'm gonna echo the sentiments of our good brother and community hero, out here raising the bar, raising the standard of excellence that's required. It takes a great deal to, give of yourself, to your fellow man, to your fellow woman. So I want to give you the strongest salute and love and reinforcement, because oftentimes you find yourself in a thankless space, and then oftentimes you find yourself in an egotistical battle with some of the parental concerns, you see what I'm saying, associated with it. So you got a fine line between how far you can go on one end and then the educational space, how far you can go on the other end. So to be able to remain steadfast and resilient in that space is an excellent salute and love and encouragement to you in the work that you do and continue to do. So I want to send that love. Rue, her signal was signalizing, okay? So God said her time was up with us, but she wanted me to, close this particular show here and invite y'all to come on next week. We'll be on next Thursday. The Healing Chamber is here for us. And again, we're both thankful to her to be a part of her archives. This is her archival legacy that she's leaving to her family and those who come in contact with her work in the future. So she's very, very meticulous and specific about who she allows to be a part of her family legacy and that legacy of healing that she left. She's a representative of Mawulisa Temple that is a space for the healers, for the caregivers, to have a space where they can be restored and be healed. Who heals the healer? And that's often a very difficult space and one of detriment in our community. We use our healers up and they never get replenished. So this is a healing space for them. So she welcomes your commentary, your critiques, your suggestions, whatever the case may be. You can contact her on Instagram, Mawulisa Temple 1, or Mawulisa Temple at Gmail. So make sure y'all stay in tune and support this amazing healing series. She has some phenomenal guests and a wealth of information. This is her life's legacy and work. She, aside from mother and healer, I don't know her from any other role. You understand what I'm saying? So again, we gotta have community in place. So she can click that sign. Like you see on the taxi cab off duty. Cut the meat off. You see what I'm saying, and be able to replenish and impart her jewels. Indirectly. From this physical space, as we want to have in life. So again, salute to you, Nick, for your love and your support and your jewels. You see what I'm saying? And being vulnerable and speaking in spirit and in truth here today. You see what I'm saying? Gave me the Holy Ghost. I was in here speaking about my speaking abouts. Okay? Speaking about my speaking abouts, but it was very necessary, and true. So with that, we say peace and love, and we will see you on next week. Healing Chamber.
That gangbang stuff not in me. I'm getting some money. Stiglo, a.k.a. chasing money. That's my game.
Being dead broke is the root of all evil. When you got this money, you can do a lot with it. When you ain't got no money, you can't do nothing. You thinking of ways to get it. People will rob for this money, kill for this money, steal for this money, scam for this money, script for this money, sell dope and take drugs for this money. But when they ain't got it, they'll come kill you about their money. Nigga, set your ass up in the motherfucking jail about this money. Nigga, snitch on you about some money. So why we take money so motherfucking lightly? You got the value of dollar, but you gotta understand it ain't gonna never stay in your pocket. It gonna go from your pocket to his pocket to her motherfucking wallet.
It ain't no grind if it don't make sense.
ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. How you gonna eat? How you paying your rent? Where you gonna sleep? You sleeping on the tent? You living on the street? You sleeping on the bench? I'm on the inside with the outside scent. Now I'm on the inside, know what outside meant.
Then I'm on the inside with the outside scent. Now I'm on the inside, know what outside meant.
Cause I don't so dimes, I don't so nicks. Plug with the plug, cause my man so bricks. With the water town with the OT trip. We made it back safe with the OT flip. I don't so music, so CDs, sold a bunch of movies, DVDs, and Goodman Plaza. We all made cheese to securities, to call the police. I done posted up at the hot dog cart. All beef dogs with the meat sauce mark. I can bring it back, come again, restart. But now I got a maze, especially every tart. Old school tab with the marker, we sharp. Down to the dawn, in the water, we sharks. Old school tab with the marker, we sharp. We can mark it anywhere in the Mars car art. You can pump blood through my vein like heart. Don't let the bull fly, bull's eye, that starts. Just in the parking lot, in the car, we park. With the music turned up, just how we spark. Rolling up tree with the backwood bark. Pocket full of vapes and they all smart cars. Separate day from the light like dark. And we bring green back like the month of March. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. It ain't no grind if it don't make sense. You can put my pay on PayPal. You can put my cash on Cash App. You can put my coin on Bitcoin. Listen, I just want my cash back. I'ma put my pack in that trap, and I'ma give my partner half that. Take the debit card to the register until the cashier want cash back. You can put my pay on PayPal. You can put my cash on Cash App. You can put my coin on Bitcoin. Listen, I just want my cash back. I'ma put my pack in that trap, and I'ma give my partner half that. Take the debit card to the register until the cashier want cash back.
You're supposed to have more than you show and speak less than you know about this money. Cause once people know about this money, they gon' come get this money. And if you don't give it, they gon' take this money. And if you still in their way about this money, they gon' kill you about this money.